العالمين وبه نستعين ونصلي ونسلم على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. Okay, so continuing on, now actually starting with the book itself, along with the sharh upon Al-Ajrumiyyah. So he starts off by saying Babul Kalami wal Kalima. Babul Kalami wal Kalima, the chapter regarding Al-Kalam and Al-Kalima. And he begins by defining Kalam, which is loosely translated as speech. نعم. So Ibn Ajrum rahimahullah ta'ala, he says Al-Kalamu, who wants to read? نعم اقرأ مطيع.
أحسن الله إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. أما بعد، اللهم اغفر لشيخنا ولوالديه وللمسلمين أجمعين. قال المصنف: باب الكلام والكلمة. تعريف الكلام: الكلام هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع.
نعم. So he says الكلام هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. Speech, it is a compound or the compound utterance which is beneficial by way of coinage. Speech, it is that compound utterance which is beneficial by way of coinage. Now this is a definition. He is defining speech when it comes to not Arabs, but rather when it comes to the scholars of syntax specifically. Everything in this book, as we mentioned, has to do with the understanding of the scholars of syntax, understanding of the scholars of Nahu, and it pertains to this science, which is the science of Nahu. Okay, in order to understand this definition, we have to understand what's going on over here. So in general, whenever we define something, one of the best ways to define something is to go in line with the hudud, or the standards and the method that was adopted by the manatiqa. And this is used in all of the sciences throughout the books, and they call this al-qawl al-sharih. The purpose is to be as precise in your definition as possible. And how would you attain precision in a definition? They say the definition needs to be two things: jami' and mani'. So we say precise definition must have two components. First one, that it is jami'. Now what does jami' mean?
Is it like something that's collective?
Na'am,
Or
jama' literally in
encompassing?
Arabic means to collect. However, over here when we say jami', we are referring to, or we are what we're trying to intend is something which is all inclusive of everything which is part of the thing that you are defining. Okay, so for example, let's say I'm defining a human being, and in my definition of a human being, I use terms. I explain, okay, you know, they're tall, they come in different complexions, they come with different temperaments and personalities, and they're able to think, and they're able to move, and whatnot. I describe it with qualities where I would be inclusive of all of the human beings. No one human should be left out through the description that I give. So jami' means that they are all inclusive. They include everything which is داخل الشيء المحدود. The definition is such that it will include everything which is part of the thing which you are defining. Okay, and mani', it means to exclude all that which is not from the thing you are defining. Okay, so a precise definition will have these two components, these two qualities. Number one, it's going to include, for example, let's say we're defining human beings, it will include for us every single human. And the definition at the same time will be able to exclude everything which is non-human, whether it's animals, whether it's birds, whether it's walls, whether it's moving objects or non-moving objects. But as long as it's not a human being, it's able to exclude everything which is non-human. This is the precise definition, and these are the two components that we look for in a definition. So what is the best way that this can be accomplished? What is the best manner to in accomplishing this? So we say the best way to accomplish this is to start by mentioning the jins. Okay. And by jins, we say we're referring to the genus. We start off by mentioning the jins. What is the jins? Let's say that humans, for example, are a subcategory of a larger category, like living objects that are able to move upon intention. Living objects that are able to, living creatures that are able to move by intent. Now, that's a large category. That includes humans, includes non-humans, like, for example, animals, includes malaika, jinns, all of these different creatures, anything living as a creature, a creation, that is able to move upon intent, with intention. It's actually able to move, taharruk. Okay? So this is a very large category. So if we first start off in our definition by mentioning this large category, then we've achieved the first component, which is that the definition should be all-inclusive. So this definition will include all humans. Okay. It's also going to include non-humans, but it's definitely going to include all human beings. Because you've mentioned such a general category, and humans are actually part of that category. So the way you would look at this is we would say, for example, living creature that moves by will. That is a category. Okay, we are creating a category. Okay, this category, living creature that moves by will, has a number of different types and subcategories. So humans fall under that. Okay. Animals fall under that. Angels will fall under that. Okay. Now, by us mentioning the category in the beginning of the definition, the category itself, what ends up happening is that you're including all of these things as part of that definition. What's left now is to remove everything which is non-human, al-mana'. Okay, how do we do that? We then mention qualities that are specific to only humans, and by doing so, we remove everything else. Okay, so in a nutshell, guys, this is the general way to create a precise definition. What is the general way to create a precise definition? First, you mention a very large category that would be inclusive of not only the thing which you are defining, but other than that as well. And number two, okay, after that, you will start mentioning qualities that are very, very specific to the thing which you are defining. And by mentioning those qualities, you are slowly removing everything else which is other than that which you are defining. So now, let's look at our definition, which is mentioned by Ibn Ajurrum, rahimahullah ta'ala. He says, Al-kalamu huwa al-lafzu al-murakkabu al-mufidu bil-wad'i. Okay, number one, the largest category actually we have is lafz. Lafz in Arabic means utterance. Okay, lafadha literally in Arabic means to throw something from the mouth. So every single thing, everything which exits the mouth is considered lafz in Arabic. Okay, it's considered an utterance. It does not need to make sense. It doesn't need to make actual sense. Okay. Rather, any sound which comes from the mouth is considered an utterance. Okay. So by us mentioning lafaz in the beginning of the definition, what have we done? We have basically mentioned the category. Okay, we've mentioned the jins, and this jins is very general. Okay, so yes, what it includes under that is speech. It includes words. It includes, for example, sounds when someone is, hurt and he goes like, "Oh, ouch." Okay, that sound is included. All sounds are included. Someone's yawning, for example, he makes a sound. All of these sounds are included when we say lafaz, utterance. So the same way, when we say utterance, Zayd is included. Days is also included. Now, days is the opposite of Zayd. It's literally if you take the same letters and you turn them upside down, it becomes days. Zayd has a meaning. Days has no meaning. But they're both included in the definition when we use the word or the term lafaz. Okay, because the term lafaz, again, is a category which is extremely general. Every utterance which exits from one's mouth will be called lafaz. طيب, lafaz then divides into two. Lafaz divides into two categories. Number one is meaningful. Okay, that word which has a meaning. And we have non-meaningful. The utterance which has no meaning. Okay, so an example of meaningful would be Zayd. Zayd is a name upon a person. And an example of a non-meaningful lafaz, okay, would be days. Flip Zayd around. Okay. In Arabic, we call this mawdu', and we call this muhmal. Naam. Mawdu' and muhmal. Now, if we wanted to define speech, do you think that we can have both of these categories, or should now we somehow, by adding a word in the definition, remove one of these categories? What do you think? Because again, the first component of the definition, which is jama', we achieve that by saying lafaz. Now we need to do mana', which is to remove everything which is actually not from that which we are defining. Okay. So should we add something in the definition that will remove for us a group of what might have entered under the category of lafaz? The answer is yes, we should. Okay. Which one of these should we add? نعم مطيع. شو رأيك؟
Yeah, I think the meaningful one should be added.
The meaning one should be added. So by adding this quality, we will remove non-meaningful utterances. Okay. So that's why if you look at the definition, he says, وَاللَّفْظُ الْمُرَكَّبُ الْمُفِيدُ بِالْوَضْعِ. So by adding wada', okay, by way of coinage, we have removed non-meaningful. And we need to remove because we're not looking for any utterance like days or ah or ouch or the utterances that are made just as sounds that don't actually have meanings in Arabic. We are not looking for those utterances. We're looking for those utterances that actually have a meaning. Okay. So by adding the qaid, we call this a qaid in Arabic, the clause of wada', which is coinage, we have removed we are able to remove non-meaningful utterances. Now, okay. So we've removed non-meaningful utterances, but we still have to remove a lot more because now Zaid is still included. Zaid is clearly not a speech, right? We're trying to define speech. Okay. So then we say that which is meaningful also further divides into two. Single, we call this mufrad. Also, it's called kalima in Arabic. Okay. And compound. We call this murakkab. Okay. Single and compound. Meaning any utterance which is meaningful that will exit from your mouth, which you will speak, will either be a single word, or a compound word, compound utterance. A compound utterance would be, okay, more than one word. This basically means more than one word. Okay. When I speak to you, for example, I can say Zaid, I can say Amr, I can say Bakr, or I can say Zaid is standing. I can say Zaid's pen. Okay, Zaid is standing, Zaid's pen. These are, would that be considered compound, meaning more than one word? Or is it a single word?
Yeah, so Zayd Qa'im is compound because it's more than one.
More than one word. There we go. Okay, if we are trying to define speech, if we are trying, and our purpose is to define speech, do you think that we need to make sure in our definition that we add the clause of being compound versus being single, or no?
Yeah, exactly. So we would have to add compound and delete
Because
the
we're
single
not
word
looking
mufrad.
for
What?
single words. We are not looking for single words.
Yeah,
Okay, so we add the clause of compound. So by adding the clause of compound, now we've removed all single words. Ya salam. Okay, let's look at what he does over here. اللفظ المركب. Ya salam. How beautiful. Okay, so by adding this clause, you've removed all single words because we're not looking for single words. Okay, that a single word is clearly not a speech. We're looking for compound structures. Okay, now compound structures can also divide into two. Okay, number one, meaningful complete meaning. And number two, non-meaningful complete meaning. Okay, what do we mean when we say meaningful complete meaning, non-meaningful complete meaning? Okay, again, what was the purpose, if you remember, in the second lesson, I believe, we mentioned the purpose of any language to begin with. Whether it's English, whether it's Arabic, whether it's Urdu, whether it's Farsi, whether it's Hebrew, any language. What was the purpose? You remember? ما الغرض?
Was
What
it
is
to
the
do with
purpose of a
the
language?
hidden meanings?
The hidden meanings, or before that, the
Yeah.
ability to convey a message. The ability to convey an actual message. Okay, so the purpose of language is to convey a message. Okay, easy. Okay, therefore, we need predication. What does it mean when we say message? What it means when we say a message, okay, the idea is that we are speaking about something, meaning there is a subject that we are addressing, speaking about, and there is information that we give regarding it. Zaid is standing. We're speaking about Zaid, and the information we're giving regarding Zaid is that he's standing. Zaid likes apples. We're talking about Zaid, and the information we give regarding him is that he likes apples. Okay. Compare that with me saying Zaid's pen. Okay. If I were to say Zaid's pen, what does one understand from this Zaid's pen? I just stopped, said Zaid's pen.
And he understands that the pen belongs to Zaid.
So that's understood. Okay. Zaid's pen. What are we talking about when we say Zaid's pen? And we're looking for a subject and a predicate, meaning something we're speaking about and what we are saying regarding it. An actual command regarding it. What are we speaking about when we say Zaid's pen?
Pen.
The pen. We're speaking about the pen. Okay, what information have we given regarding Zaid's pen?
Nothing. It's just that it
Nothing.
belongs to Zaid.
Beautiful, beautiful. We did not actually give any information regarding Zaid's pen. As opposed to, for example, me saying Zaid's pen is beautiful. Okay, now all of a sudden you have information that you've given regarding Zaid's pen. Okay, when we said by adding mawdu' meaningful and adding the clause of murakkab, okay, what we have included in our definition basically is number one, all utterances. Number two, they have to be meaningful. They have to have a meaning in the language. Number three, they need to be compound. Both of these structures are compound, correct? Are they not? Yes. However, one of them,
Yeah, they are.
You're actually getting compound, meaning they're more than one word. Zaid's pen versus Zaid's pen is beautiful, right? So one of them, you're actually getting the message. The message is being conveyed, hence it should be speech. And in the other one, you are basically left hanging. Like, okay, you're waiting for the message. Right? Someone says, Zaid's pen. And they just stop. And you're like, okay, go on. What about it? Did you lose it? Is it amazing? Are you asking where is it? You're waiting for the message. You don't know what the person is saying regarding the pen. So what we need to do is we need to add a clause which will remove this first possibility, which is only mentioning a compound structure or multiple words, but the meaning is not actually being conveyed because that's not speech. No one will call, for example, if you go around saying, the tall boy who lives next door, and you just stop. Have you conveyed a message? If I went to someone and said,
No, you need to
the
wait
book,
for
the book which is
the
titled Al-Ajurumiyya, I just stopped after that. The person I'm speaking to, what's he gonna say? He'll say, go on. Yeah, what about it? What about the book? The book, which is titled Al-Ajrumiyya, is an
Yes.
easy book. Okay, now I understand what he's saying. So now you can define what I said as speech. You can call it, classify it as speech. In the first scenario where you have a compound structure, you can have a compound structure, multiple words, but there's no message actually being conveyed. We don't call this speech. We don't call this kalam. So we need to add a qaid. We need to add a clause. We must add a clause in the definition that will remove the first scenario. What's the first scenario? The first scenario is when you have multiple words, okay? So it is a compound structure, compound utterance by coinage. However, it's not actually giving you a meaning. So for this, we add the clause of meaningful. But what do we intend when we say meaningful? A meaning which gives the listener complete benefit, upon which silence is appropriate. Now, so the idea is that we're trying to convey a meaning upon which the listener does not have a question. So for example, if I were to say the tall boy who lives next door and I stopped, okay, the listener will not be silent. He's waiting for something. He's expecting something. Okay, which is the predicate. What about him? What regarding him? But if I said, for example, the boy is tall. Okay, there's another really interesting over here. The amount of words doesn't matter. The tall boy who lives next door. How many words is that? The tall boy who lives next door. That's 7 words. Okay, 7 words, but yeah, I haven't given a purpose. I haven't given a meaning. I haven't conveyed an actual message. Versus the boy is tall. That's 4 words. But yet there's a message being conveyed. So the amount of words, we're not looking at the amount of words. We're looking at whether this aspect, which is a complete meaning upon which silence is appropriate for the listener, whether that is being achieved or not. If that is being achieved, then that will be considered actual speech, kalam in Arabic. Okay, so we need a clause for this. Okay, in Arabic we call this al-mufid. Okay, let's look at the definition now. He says هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. يا سلام. Okay, now, okay, if we dissected this definition according to the masters when it comes to the art of defining things, okay, speech is number 1, al-lafz. Al-lafz means it's an utterance. Okay, what's the purpose of mentioning this? Naam. I want you to
The
dissect the
purpose of
definition.
mentioning lafz.
Yes.
It's to tell us that it's looking for utterance, a specific type of utterance that is meaningful and not meaningless.
Nah, the purpose is to make the definition all inclusive. So we start off by mentioning a category which is so broad that it includes speech, which is kalam, and non-speech as well. Okay. By us mentioning al-lafz, any utterance which exits the mouth, we start off with that. What's the purpose? To make the definition all inclusive. Okay. Then when we say al-murakkab, what have we removed by adding this clause?
Single words.
Single words. So when we say, when you were to say, for example, al-lafz, if you only said al-lafz, then that would be problematic. Why is that problematic? Because now we have single words, we have compound structures, we have meaningful structures. Yes, they're all meaningful, but the point is that they're single words as well, and compound words and structures as well. And we're not looking for single words. So by adding the qaid, by adding the clause of al-murakkab, you have removed all single words. So you're starting in the process of with the process of exclusion, which is mana'. Okay.
Mani', which is whatever that you don't need to.
Naam. So by adding this clause, which is al-murakkab, you have removed single words. Okay. By adding the clause, which is al-mufid, what are you removing? Al-mufid in Arabic
Removing
means
that
beneficial.
which is not beneficial.
Yes. So you're removing all of those possible scenarios where you can have a compound structure, multiple words, but those multiple words are not actually conveying a message, not giving a complete benefit upon which silence is appropriate. Okay. That's what you are removing. So if you really want to define mufid properly over here, okay, like in this definition, we said speech is a compound utterance which is of benefit. No, that's not the best way of defining it. Compound utterance which gives
benefit.
a benefit
Yeah.
upon which silence is appropriate. Okay, if you don't add this part, which is upon which silence is appropriate, then what's the issue?
If you don't add it,
then someone can say,
because
okay, Zaid's pen also has a
why?
partial benefit. If you just said, for example, Zaid's pen, there is partial benefit. Like we figure out that we're talking about Zaid's pen, not Amr's pen. So there is
No, but
partial benefit, but it's not
the
giving you
issue,
enough benefit upon which silence is appropriate. And we're not looking for partial benefit. We're looking for a benefit which is complete meaning upon it silence is appropriate. The listener gets something from it. Right? He's not left with a question. Okay. So to define mufid, we would say a benefit upon which silence is actually appropriate, not any benefit, not mutlaqul fa'ida. Rather, a benefit upon which silence is appropriate. So speech is the compound utterance which gives a benefit upon which silence is appropriate. Okay. All of this is by way of coinage. Okay, in the Arabic language, meaning by way of coining terms in the Arabic language for the Arabic language. And by adding this clause, which is bil wada', we have removed everything which is not coined in the Arabic language. Okay. So when you add these four clauses, al-lafz, al-murakkab, al-mufid, bil wada', now we have precisely defined speech according to the scholars of syntax. Okay, so we will not include within speech, for example, something which is not an utterance. It has to be an utterance. Then not only on top of that, it has to be an utterance which is coined, meaning it has meaning, it carries meaning in the Arabic language. And then on top of that, it has to be a compound utterance. It can't be single word. And on top of that, it has to give such a benefit upon which silence is appropriate. And with that, you have a precise definition of kalam, which is both jami', meaning it's all inclusive, and it's mani', meaning we are excluding everything, which is non kalam, by using this terminology. Okay. So this is the art of defining something, and there is a science which, as we mentioned, in Mantiq they study this. It's called al-qawl al-sharih, and there are rules and guidelines to make the definition of whatever you are defining as precise as possible. And the general outlook is what we mentioned and the way we dissected this definition. So each one of these words, ahbab, these words are all for a very, very specific reason. They're very, selected for a very, very specific reason. There's no word in this definition except that it has a very, very specific reason. Okay. And if you really want to understand, see, we could have just said al-kalam huwa al-lafz al-murakkab al-mufid bil-wada' and just, defined it and moved on. But if you really want to understand why each one of these words was brought, okay, you need to understand how defining works, the art of definition works. And that's why we explained it the way we explained it. Okay, now we'll move on with the reading of the sharh. Na'am, iqra.
أحسن الله إليك. الشرح بدأ المصنف بتعريف الكلام لأن النحو لإقامة الكلام.
نعم, the author
تنبيه.
starts by defining speech because syntax, the science of syntax, is for the purpose of creating speech. We mentioned the whole purpose of nahu, the whole purpose of i'rab is to allow us to convey that meaning, which is the purpose of a language. Language is for the purpose of conveying meanings, conveying a message. So that's why the author first starts off by defining kalam. نعم, go on. تنبيه.
تنبيه. لللفظ الكلام معنيان، أحدهما لغوي والثاني نحوي.
نعم. So again, why are we mentioning this تنبيه, this note of caution? Because when we say kalam, we can be referring to kalam from a linguistic perspective, okay, just thinking about kalam in language, or to be more precise, we can refer to kalam from the perspective of the scholars of syntax. Okay, and what we're worried about is not the linguistic method or the linguistic meaning of kalam. Like linguistically, how can kalam be used in language, right? The dictionary definition. Okay, the lexical definition of kalam. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the very precise understanding of kalam, which falls in line with the science, with the discipline of nahu. Okay, نعم, go on. أما الكلام اللغوي.
أما الكلام اللغوي فهو عبارة عما تحصل بسببه فائدة، سواء أكان لفظا أم لم يكن، كالخط والكتابة والإشارة.
نعم. When we say kalam linguistically, like for example, someone says, I was amazed by Bakar's speech. Okay, I was amazed by his his speech. Now, speech can be used literally, like for example, let's say someone literally gave a speech, okay, and you were amazed by it. But it can also be used metaphorically, like for example, oh, Bakr, he indicated he actually wrote something. Okay, like let's say for example, that author's speech is amazing. That the author's way of presentation is absolutely mind blowing. So over there, you're using speech in a linguistic sense, in a metaphorical sense, to refer to any form of meaning, any form of eloquence which is within the conveyed meaning, whether it's done by in the written form or whether it's spoken, it's uttered, right? It exits from the mouth, or whether it's written, or whether it's even an indication, it's indicating towards it. All of that will be considered kalam lughawi. So kalam lughawi is very general. Kalam lughawi is very general. It includes that which exits from the mouth, but it also includes, for example, something which is written on a piece of paper. Let's say there's an author, he writes a book, and the book, someone is very fond of the way the author writes, so he says the author, his speech is amazing. His literature is absolutely mind blowing. Okay, so that's a very general way of looking at kalam. Go on. وأما الكلام النحوي.
وأما الكلام النحوي فلا بد من أن يجتمع فيه أربعة أمور،
نعم.
وهي
As
التي
for الكلام النحوي, الكلام النحوي, meaning as for kalam speech, according to the scholars of syntax or in the discipline, in the science of syntax, فلا بد من أن يجتمع فيه أربعة أمور. It's necessary that four matters are included within it. Go on.
وهي التي أشار له المصنف فقال: الكلام هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع.
نعم. They are the ones, here, meaning these matters are the ones that the author indicates towards, as he says, الكلام هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. Kalam is the utterance which is compound and beneficial, the complete benefit upon which silence is appropriate, by way of coinage. Okay. And then he will go and define each one of these one by one, and we'll read the rest of this inshallah in the next lesson. For this lesson, we wanted to explain, before we actually read all of this, that's mentioned in the sharh, so that we have a correct understanding regarding how kalam works, or what are we defining, what are we trying to define. So now when we read what he writes, inshallah, everything will be a lot more easier to understand. Okay. طيب. we'll stop with this inshallah, this lesson, and tomorrow we will continue bi'idhnillahi ta'ala with the rest of the sharh, along with questions, just to make sure that we have solidified our understanding, along with questions and examples, inshallah ta'ala, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.